The room went dead quiet right after he said it. 37 people staring at me, some blinking, some pretending to check their notes. I'd been halfway through my slides, quarterly metrics, freight costs, the kind of numbers that kept Whitmore Corp alive, when the door swung open. Bradley Whitmore strolled in like he owned the place. He wasn't even on the invite list. Pistachio smoothie in hand, designer loafers, leaning against my whiteboard like it was his living room wall. "I don't get why we still have legacy staff," he said, loud enough to echo off the conference speakers. "It's like carrying dead weight." My chest tightened. Legacy staff. That was me. 12 years running strategic fulfillment, building the supply chain from scratch. I'd brokered the Midwest acquisition during the middle of COVID, while my father lay dying in a hospice bed. I had people in this room who'd been with me since day one, and this kid, the CEO's Ivy League consultant son, was calling us dead weight, with a smile that looked like it belonged on a brochure. No one moved, not a cough, not a word from the execs dialed in. Just silence, like they were all waiting to see if I'd explode. Bradley sipped his smoothie, staring at me the way a cat watches a bird. Rumors were he'd plagiarized his senior thesis at Yale. Didn't matter, his dad ran the company. I felt my face heating, my palms slick on the clicker. If I opened my mouth, I'd shred him in front of everyone and hand him exactly what he wanted. Instead, I shut my laptop, slid the clicker across the table, and nodded once at my team. "We're done for today," I said, voice flat. "Resume your work." Chairs squeaked. No one looked at me. Bradley smirked like he'd scored a point. I walked out before my face gave me away. My shoes hit the hallway carpet in a steady rhythm, heartbeat loud in my ears. Down 2 turns, past the break room. Into the bathroom, the smell of disinfectant and cheap soap hit me. I locked the stall, sat on the toilet lid, and stared at the floor. Cracks in the tile, faint gray lines spidering out like veins. I counted them. 1, 2, 3, anything to keep my hands from shaking. Quick note while you're listening, tell us which city or country you're watching from. I wasn't crying, not yet, but I knew the truth sitting there in that ugly stall with the buzzing light overhead. The kind of truth you don't say out loud. I was already gone. My job, my title, the years I'd poured into this place, they were ash now, blowing out the vent above me. I stood up, flushed the toilet even though it was empty, and splashed cold water on my face. The mirror showed a man who looked older than 42, director of strategic fulfillment. Whitmore Corporation dead weight. I dried my hands and walked back out. I hadn't even made it all the way back to my desk before I saw it. Bright pink sticky notes stuck right to the middle of my monitor like a damn badge. "Bradley wants to see you at 4 o'clock. Not HR, not my supervisor. Bradley. I dropped into my chair, took one breath, then pulled out my phone. Me. "Looks like it's happening. Claire. I'll chill the champagne or the shotgun." She always knew how to cut through the noise. I didn't do a damn thing for the next hour. Just sat there pretending to work, watching the clock click toward the death sentence. At 3:59, I stood up, straightened my sleeves, and walked down the hall like I was going to a budget review. No panic, no drama, just movement. Conference room, C, one of those glass fish bowls with blinds that were always half broken. I pushed the door open at exactly 4. Bradley was already inside, sitting back like a tech bro on a podcast. One ankle on his knee, smoothie gone, hands folded behind his head like he'd just nailed a TED Talk. 2 HR reps sat next to him, one typing, the other holding a thick manila folder. "Ethan," he said, way too cheerful. "Come on in, man. Have a seat, man." He was maybe 30, tops. Hair slicked like a stock photo, that same cocky Ivy League grin that made me want to knock the teeth out of his mouth. I sat down, didn't smile, didn't blink. He nodded toward the folder. "Look, I just want to start by thanking you for everything. I mean, archive-level work. You've been here, over a decade? That's commitment." I glanced at the folder, paper clipped, thick. That was my goodbye. "Your contributions are the reason this company has a backbone," he went on. "But leadership's evolving, and we're moving into a new era of scalability and culture fit." "I think you understand?" I didn't respond. One of the HR women slid the folder toward me. She didn't make eye contact. 6 months' salary, Bradley said. "Full bonus, all your stock vests, We kept it generous because we respect what you built. All we ask is a little discretion moving forward. No public statements, no leaks, no messy farewells." His hand flicked through the air like he was closing a curtain. I flipped open the folder, scanned the numbers. They'd done the math. Generous, yeah, but also surgical. Just enough to keep me quiet, not enough to forget the insult. I could have made a scene, could have slammed the table, called him out in front of his HR babysitters. But instead, I picked up the pen and signed. Calm hand, steady line. Then I stood, closed the folder, and reached across the table. He shook my hand like we were parting after a nice lunch. I smiled back, tight, professional, like I was headed to brunch. Like this wasn't my body lighting on fire from the inside. "You're handling this like a pro," he said. "Of course I am," I said. "Wouldn't want to make legacy staff look emotional." One of the HR ladies blinked hard. Bradley didn't catch it. I walked out without another word. Down the hall, past the same conference room where I'd run reviews for 12 years. I hit the exit and stepped out into the parking lot. The sun was low, throwing long shadows across the asphalt. My throat burned, not with tears, with rage. Heavy, choking, impossible to swallow. By the time I got home, the sun was down and the house was quiet. Claire had left the porch light on and a sticky note on the fridge. "Champagne's chilling. Shotgun's in the closet. Pick your poison?" I didn't answer, just went straight to the cabinet above the stove, the one we never used for anything but bad ideas and old secrets. I reached past a dusty fondue set and pulled out a bottle of McKenna bourbon older than Bradley's entire LinkedIn history. I cracked the seal, poured 2 fingers, and walked to my office. Closed the door. Bottom drawer, far back, taped to the underside. I peeled off the folder. Moga Freight, confidential. This was the real play. I'd started laying the groundwork 6 months ago, back when whispers about Bradley showing up became office jokes. I knew it was only a matter of time before he started swinging his dad's power like a stick in a glass house. So I found a back door. Moga Freight, Whitmore's biggest supplier. 70% of our national distribution pipeline ran through them. But nobody at HQ had ever met the founder. They just saw a contract and a logo. I met him, Vince Caldwell. 50-something, weathered like a truck stop sign, smelled like diesel and chewing tobacco. Henley shirt, boots older than my career, voice like sandpaper. We met 3 times over coffee in that grim diner off E40. Third time, he leaned across the booth and asked, "You sure you want this headache?" I looked him dead in the eye. "I've already danced with the devil. This is just his cousin." He laughed, slow and dry. "Then let's see how deep your pockets go." I wired the funds that night. 3 sources. Severance, liquidated crypto, and a loan from my late sister's trust. I'd promised Claire I'd never touch it. I touched it. By 10:30 the next morning, I got the call. "Paperwork cleared," Vince said. "You now own 51% of my headache. Controlling interest, majority vote. CEO rights if I wanted them." By noon, I was in a private Slack channel with Vince's dispatch manager. By 2, I was on a video call drafting my first official letter. Effective immediately, all preferred rate structures and lane guarantees with Whitmore Corporation will be undergoing strategic realignment. That's corporate speak for bend over. We're about to reprice everything. I timed it to hit inboxes by 4:45 p.m., late enough that no one would respond till the next day, but early enough to ruin every logistics manager's commute. I hit send, watched the icon spin, done. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel bad. I opened my laptop again, pulled up the route schedule for the Midwest corridor, and started redrawing every contract I ever touched. Bradley had fired me, thinking he was cutting a limb. He didn't know he just handed me the blade, and I wasn't done slicing. I was buried in contract revisions when my phone buzzed. Unknown Houston number, 1 line of text. "We should talk. Your move didn't go unnoticed. -K, quote." I froze. My chest clenched like someone poured concrete into it. Only 1 K could hit that hard. Katrina Whitmore, Bradley's mother, Robert Whitmore's ex-wife, the original ghost of Whitmore Corporation. Last time I saw her was 6 years ago at the corporate summit in Denver. She leaned in after one of my presentations and whispered, "You're smarter than all of them. Use it." Then she disappeared, Sold off her 12% stake and went full phantom. No social media, no press, nothing. And now she was watching. I texted back, "Where?" She replied seconds later, "Bellamy's. Thursday, 8 o'clock. Come alone." Bellamy's wasn't just dinner, it was a message. That place was a bunker for high-level deals and private wars. Dark wood, thicker walls, staff that didn't flinch when the knives came out. I showed up 10 minutes early and still found her already seated in the farthest booth. Dim light above her, crystal glass of red wine in hand, white blouse crisp, face unreadable. She hadn't aged, just sharpened. "Ethan," she said like we were old friends. "You look like a man with blood under his nails." I slid into the booth. "You're not far off." She pulled a slim black envelope from her purse and laid it on the table between us. No drama, no build-up. Just placed it there like a napkin. Inside were photos. First, Bradley and Vince Caldwell shaking hands. Second, a scanned stock transfer agreement dated 2 weeks before my buyout, showing an attempted purchase of Moga Freight through a holding company based out of Delaware. Third, an email thread between Bradley and Moog's CFO. Subject line, "Timeline for full acquisition." I stared at the last one for a long time. Katrina sipped her wine. "He tried to beat you to it. You just moved faster." I closed the folder. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you blocked his plan. And that makes you the first real obstacle he's ever run into." I nodded slowly. "You could have just let him fail." She leaned forward, her voice low. "Bradley doesn't fail, not publicly. His father covers it up, shifts the blame, and tosses money at the fire until it looks like strategy." I sat back. "And what do you want?" 5% silent stake in Moga. I feed you intel, emails, backdoor meetings, internal chatter, anything he touches, I give you the blueprint. "And the goal?" "In 6 months," she said, "you'll have him dangling by strings he thinks he tied himself." I watched her eyes. There wasn't a flicker of emotion, just precision. "You're using me," I said. She smiled. "Of course I am. But I'm also giving you the one thing he'll never have. Clarity." The waiter came, dropped the check without a word. Katrina paid in cash. As we stood, she adjusted her coat. "He's already panicking, Ethan." That freight letter rattled his cage. "He just doesn't know who really shook it." I walked her out. She disappeared into a black town car before I could even blink. I stood outside Bellamy's, the envelope still in my hand, stomach twisted into a knot. She'd just handed me a matchbook and pointed at the gasoline. And the worst part? I was already reaching for the lighter. I didn't have to wait long. 3 days after Bellamy's, the email hit my inbox at 9:07 a.m. Sharp, subject, internal compliance audit, Moga Freight Holdings. From Whitmore Corp. Legal affairs. A scanned letter was attached, full of stiff language, red flag phrases like financial inconsistencies, vendor performance review, and cooperative urgency. Bradley had fired his first shot. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up like someone dropped a match in a fireworks shop. First call, Tanya from procurement. "Ethan, what the hell's going on?" "We just got pulled into a logistics audit. Are you seriously the new owner of Moga?" Then Chris from ops. Then Melanie from compliance. All the same breathless tone, panic, confusion, and one repeating phrase. "Is it true?" I didn't deny it, didn't confirm it either, just said, "Keep your head down and stay out of it." But the fear spread fast. Word moved faster than facts. By noon, Katrina called. "Bradley's painting you as the disgruntled ex-employee trying to tank the company," she said. "He'll push the unstable narrative. He knows how to weaponize polite doubt." I was standing in my backyard, phone to my ear, staring at the old rusted grill I never got around to throwing out. "And what do you suggest?" I asked. "Don't threaten him," she said. "Humiliate him. Publicly. Take something he thinks is locked and make it yours." I already knew what. Fintech distribution, big fish, top 5 client for Whitmore Corp. And their owner, Gerald Finn, hated Bradley more than I did. They'd butted heads over price hikes 2 quarters back. Bradley called him replaceable in an open call. Gerald never forgot. I reached out. We met in a strip mall steakhouse just past the airport. Gerald walked in wearing a fishing vest over a dress shirt, like he couldn't decide what part of the day he hated more. I got to the point fast. "I'll give you exclusive national shipping at 10% under Whitmore's rates," I said. "Guaranteed pricing for 18 months. No upcharges, no surprises. You'll be first in line." Every time he leaned back, smirked. "Why now?" "Because you want leverage," I said. "And I want blood." He laughed, one sharp bark, then stuck out his hand. "Send the damn contract." By Friday, Whitmore's logistics team was in full-blown meltdown. Trucks stuck, routes rerouted, fintech pulling out of bids. I got the text from Katrina that afternoon. "HQ's on fire. Bradley hasn't shown his face in 2 days. He's hiding. Nicely done, always wild, seeing where this story lands." I didn't celebrate. I didn't sleep much either, because fear works both ways. Yes, I was hitting him, hard. But the deeper I went, the more I realized how exposed I was. The contracts, the funding trail, the people who still worked inside Whitmore. I'd drawn a bright red circle around my name, and Bradley wasn't done. He was just reloading. I stared out my window that night, phone in hand, waiting for the next move. But I already knew where this was headed. He was going to try and burn me down. So I started laying traps of my own. The next wave hit Monday at 8:12 a.m. My ops lead called from Moga's Tennessee terminal, panic in her voice. "All Whitmore purchase orders just got frozen. Nothing's processing." Payments paused across the board. I opened my inbox. There it was, an alert from Whitmore Legal. Suspension of vendor transactions pending internal audit review. Bradley had pulled the pin on a siege. No freight moving. No invoices clearing. No fuel reimbursements. If I hadn't seen it coming, it would have buried me. But I had already laid my backup plan in concrete. 2 weeks earlier, I'd quietly stood up 3 shell vendors, names that didn't trace back to Moga, but were owned entirely by me. Those vendors had fresh accounts, clean paper trails, and separate distribution contracts that looked like they'd come out of a regional logistics firm's back office. So when Bradley shut the gates, I just rerouted the trucks. Same drivers, same freight, different logo on the manifest. He thought he was starving the animal. What he didn't know was, I'd already taught it how to hunt without him. But logistics is as much perception as it is product. I couldn't risk letting the market think we were fumbling. So I released a letter on every channel, LinkedIn, trade boards, email blasts. Due to recent internal policy shifts at Whitmore Corporation, some legacy account structures are temporarily impacted. Moga remains fully operational and committed to consistent service across all networks. No finger pointing, just enough shade to make people ask questions. Within an hour, #Whitmore Meltdown started trending on industry forums and X. By lunch, 2 former Whitmore clients had already reached out. By dinner, 5 more had signed exploratory NDAs to work directly with me. Bradley had tried to box me in. I'd just turned the box into a platform and stood on it. At 8:46 p.m., Katrina texted, "Well played, King." Daddy siding with the board attached was a photo. Bradley pacing in a conference room, tie off, hand gripping the back of his neck, lawyer beside him. That was when I knew the lawsuits were coming. Next morning, my attorney Eliza forwarded a PDF. Notice of civil complaint, Ethan Ross versus Whitmore Corporation. Charges, malicious interference, corporate espionage, emotional instability. That last one stung more than I wanted to admit. He wasn't just trying to stall me, he was trying to paint me as unhinged, a man unraveling. The lawsuit wasn't meant to win. It was meant to freeze contracts, scare clients, and leak poison into the water. I sat in my office that night, phone buzzing every 5 minutes, clients checking in, lawyers asking for documents, journalists fishing for quotes. I didn't flinch, didn't break. Instead, I wrote one more letter, this time to my own vendors. I told them the storm was here. I told them we were staying the course. I told them we'd get through it if no one blinked. Then I turned off my phone, closed my laptop, and opened a window. Cold air hit my face like a slap. I wasn't just playing defense anymore. Bradley thought lawsuits would scare me off. He didn't realize he'd just handed me the spotlight. The lobby of Whitmore Tower smelled like lemon wax and old money. I hadn't walked through those glass doors since the day I left with a folder full of hush papers. This time, I wasn't alone. Eliza Hart walked beside me, heels clicking sharp against the marble. She wore a dark navy suit, zero jewelry, and an expression like a closed vault. Unflinching, undefeated. You didn't hire Eliza to settle. You hired her to draw blood and smile doing it. Security buzzed us up. Top floor, boardroom. Bradley was already there, perched at the head of the table like a kid playing executive. His lawyer sat to his right. The Whitmore board lined both sides, 10 suits, half of them trying not to look bored, the other half watching me like I was carrying explosives. Bradley smiled when we walked in. "Ethan," he said, "appreciate you coming in to clear things up." "Absolutely," I said. "Let's clear it all up." Eliza didn't sit. She dropped her briefcase on the table and began handing out folders. "Inside, you'll find a full timeline of Mr. Whitmore's unauthorized communications with Moog Freight's CFO," she said, voice crisp, starting 2 months before Mr. Ross was terminated. A few heads came up. "Page 7, she continued, details a deliberate effort to inflate Moga's costs using offshore holding companies controlled by third-party proxies. Page 13, Bradley's own email signature authorizing a wire transfer from one of those proxies to Moog's acquisition account." Someone cleared their throat. Eliza turned to Bradley. "You tried to buy Moga out from under your own father. You were defrauding your own company." The room froze. Bradley laughed too loud, too fast. "That's ridiculous. This is retaliation. He's just bitter. He's sabotaging us." I cut him off. "I bought Moga to survive. You made it sabotage." He stood up, palms open. "This is insane. My father will never—" "Bradley," Robert Whitmore said. His voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. "Step outside." Bradley froze. "What?" "Now." His face twisted, but he grabbed his lawyer and stormed out. Silence settled like dust. Robert turned toward me, slow, calculated. He looked tired. "What would it take to make this go away?" I didn't blink. His resignation. Effective immediately. A few gasps. Someone whispered, "Jesus?" And, I continued, a public statement severing all ties between Bradley and Moga Freight. On record, on paper. No spin. Robert stared at me for a long second, then nodded once. Done. That was it. Years of tension, backdoor scheming, ruined careers, all boiled down to one word. Done. Eliza closed her briefcase with a soft snap. "We'll send a draft for the statement by morning," she said. As we walked back out through the lobby, sunlight poured in through the glass. My hands weren't shaking. No rage, no panic. Just the weight of something real finally shifting in my favor. Bradley tried to gut me in public. I didn't just survive it. I made him bleed for it. The press release dropped at 9:03 a.m. sharp. Bradley Whitmore resigns from his role as strategic advisor to pursue new opportunities outside the company. It was corporate speak for, we threw him out the back door, and the media ran with it. Every headline danced around the real story, but the photo said enough. Bradley in a gray suit, face pale, escorted out of Whitmore Tower by security. No handshake, no quotes. Just the hum of a career short-circuiting in real time. At noon, I sat across from Eliza in her office while she slid a sealed release across the table. "This kills the lawsuit," she said. "No public record, no future claims. You sign, it's over." I didn't hesitate. I signed. The ink dried fast, but the feeling didn't. Bradley was a smug little bastard, but he wasn't stupid. His trail had been too sloppy. Emails, transfers, proxy shells, almost gift-wrapped. It was like someone sharpened the blade for him, handed it to me, and pointed me straight at his throat. That night, my phone buzzed with a voicemail. "Katrina." "You did it," her voice said, smooth as always. "But you were never his target. I needed a fall guy, and Brad was born to play the role. You got what you wanted. Now take it and walk away." She hung up. I stared at the screen for a long time, then grabbed my keys. Bellamy's was nearly empty by the time I arrived. Corner booth, envelope on the table, no sign of her. Just a single folder left behind like unfinished business. Inside was a signed transfer document, 12% ownership stake in Moga Freight, from Katrina to me. No note, no explanation. Just the paper and her name, scrawled in blue ink at the bottom like a ghost's signature. She had vanished again, burned every trace of herself, erased the fingerprints, and left me the empire. I walked out of Bellamy's holding that envelope like it weighed 100 pounds. I now owned 63% of Moga, not just controlling interest, undisputed control. It should have felt like standing on top of the mountain. Instead, it felt like watching a storm pull away, knowing it left wreckage behind. Bradley was gone, his reputation gutted, his father's silence bought. I was left holding the empire and the consequences. I didn't sleep that night, just sat at the kitchen table, staring at the signed transfer, bourbon sweating in my hand. This wasn't the end. This was the setup. 3 weeks passed, I barely slept. Didn't need to. Moga surged, the phones never stopped. Clients who used to ghost my emails were now blowing up my line, begging for capacity, throwing money at the floor just to get in the room. I automated everything: routing, tracking, invoicing. Built a back end that ran cleaner than anything Whitmore ever touched. I poached their logistics director without even offering more money. Just a desk where she didn't have to babysit idiots. Every number climbed. Every week outperformed the last. And still, every win tasted like ash. Because it wasn't just built on strategy. It was built on blood. Hers, his, mine. Every signature in that stack of contracts had a body behind it. Late Friday night, I was packing up when the doorbell rang. No knock, no message, just an envelope on the mat. Inside, a photo. Katrina in a hospital bed, holding a newborn. No makeup, eyes tired, smiling at something beyond the camera. Bradley clipped to it was a letter, handwritten, tight cursive. Ethan, you were always meant to run it, not just the business, the weight of it, the fire, the fallout. You carry it better than any of us ever could. But don't become me. Don't vanish behind your victories. Don't let power replace purpose. I burned everything I touched. Build something that outlives the fire. K. I read it twice. Then I set it down. Monday morning, I walked into the boardroom. No lawyers, no allies, just me. The new Moga board sat in a half circle, watching, waiting to see if I'd gloat, posture, play king. I stood at the head of the table, both hands flat on the surface. I'm not here to play king, I said. I'm here to build something no ghost can burn again. Nobody spoke. They just nodded, one by one. In that moment, the room shifted. It belonged to me now, not by bloodline, not by luck, by grit, by war. And somewhere, maybe in some quiet place where power doesn't follow, Katrina smiled. Because the man she used, he was gone. What's left is the architect, and he's just getting started.